Hello, and thanks for joining us again for another Fathom Live. We're glad that you are joining us. I'm your host, Jeff Sturtz. This is a live stream show dedicated to giving you tips and insights with experts in and around the real estate industry. So glad you're here with us. Today I'm flying solo without our founder and CEO, Josh Harley. So do me a favor and share the snot out of this video and make me look good while he's gone. How's that sound? I'm just kidding around, but we do hope you share it because if you do share it, you will be entered into a drawing to win a photo package. We're going to talk about that a little bit more here in a second. Well, let's talk about it now, actually. So the first 100 people to comment during the show, so that starts now. If you want to just say, hey, I'm here or whatever, or share it prior to the show, during the show, whatever, we will enter you into a drawing to win a photo package. And our guest today is from Realty Pro Shots. If you're within that vicinity where their company shoots, then we'll hook you up with them. Otherwise, we'll find a photographer in your area up to a $200 value, and you'll get a free a listing photography package through us, through them. And so yeah, go ahead, start sharing. We've already gotten 39 shares, which is great. So share away, and we'll see how many people we can get watching the show. We also, I just was looking here today, we have 3,500 likes on our Facebook page. Why not share that as well? And let's get that up to 4. Let's see if we can do that in the next few weeks here. That'd be kind of cool. See how many likes we can get on that page. So share, comment, and then of course during the live stream show, we're on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. The comments, by the way, for the contest, that will take place on Twitter not on Twitter, on Facebook and YouTube. That's where we're going to be doing the drawing from. But if you want to interact with Charles, our guest today from Realty Pro Shots, just comment on Facebook or on YouTube. We'll be monitoring those during the show. Great, already people saying they're here. So we'll be monitoring those, and we'll try to field those questions if we have time for all of them. We don't always have time for all the questions, of course, but feel free to jump in on that. So again, today our guest is Charles Lauersdorf. He's the president of Realty Pro Shots. It's a professional real estate photography company. Excited to have him. But before we get to that good stuff, why don't you just stick to the good stuff of your real estate business and interacting, with clients and showing homes and doing all that good stuff, and leave the messy paperwork stuff to the people that love it over at On Target Transactions. So with On Target Transactions, they are a transaction coordinating team, and it's not just somebody within a business, it's somebody that's a third party, and so they're able to really handle things well as a team for your real estate transactions. You pay a small flat fee to them, and they handle a large portion of the time that you would normally spend dealing with transaction work. So they manage transaction integrations, deadlines, handle coordinated inspections, appraisals, walkthroughs, closings. So instead of working harder, work smarter with On Target so they can handle everything from start to finish in your residential real estate transactions. Again, that's ontargettransactions.com. All right, let's get all done with that stuff and get right to our guest, Charles Lauersdorf. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Oh, well, hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. An honor to be here and happy to help in any way I can.
Yeah, so Charles is a Marine, having served in Afghanistan, Iraq, Jordan, the Philippines, on 7 different deployments, if I'm correct on that, over the course of 9 years in active duty, and now still serves on reserves, in the reserves. So 16 years in total, is that right?
I think we're right at 16 years. That's right.
And what kind of area of service, or am I allowed to say that? What area?
I'm in the intelligence and the counterterrorism world.
Very good, very good. So both you and by the way, thank you for your service. And as we look toward the Independence Day week here, thank you for helping keep our country free as it is. So thank you for that. But both you and Josh, our CEO, are Marines. So who outranks who?
Well, since he's not there right beside you to jump in, I will say that as a Marine, I do believe I attained a higher rank. However, that being said, I did stick around a little bit longer, so I had that advantage. But 2, with him being the CEO, I think now anything he extremely outranks me. So he definitely has the upper hand now.
Okay, all right, but okay, Marine-wise though. So if we put you in like a Hunger Games situation, who could incapacitate? Well, never mind. We won't do that. But I know that I know that Josh is a big advocate for veterans in business. Has that played a factor in you doing business, or how has that helped you as you have grown your real estate photography business?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's given us a major competitive advantage in that our attention to detail as a company and what I'm able to pass on to our other photographers. Our attention to detail is just, I mean, it's on point. And of course, with the timeliness too. Like they teach you in the Marine Corps, to be on time is to be late. To be 15 minutes early is to be on time. And so, we really drive being timely. Not just myself, but to our team as well. And of course, those times we do come up short because traffic or something else. We always make it right. But those two aspects, and that, and just being part of a team. And that's what we are here with Fathom as well. And understanding that. With these agents we work with, they're part of our team too. There's never an I in it. And so I think between those three, it's definitely given us an advantage over the other folks in the industry.
Very good. So how did you get started in the photography business, the real estate photography business?
Well, the short story of it is after I left active duty, I was a government contractor for a while, and I realized that was not going to be around forever. So my business partner sent me out all of his photography gear, and I said, all right, now I got to learn how to use it. So I jumped on YouTube and taught myself photography, but I said, I don't want to do weddings. I don't want to do portraits. Don't want to shoot pets. And then I saw real estate photography was a thing. And this was about eight and a half years ago. And I said, you know what? That's what I want to do. Because interestingly enough, both of the first houses I ever bought, we had to find them online. Then we had one day to fly into that new city we were going to, one day to fly and look at the homes, and the next day we were signing. So we were the realtor's best friend because they knew for a fact we were going to buy, that following day. So looking at all the photos, though, I mean, I know we missed out on our dream home because the photos were just terrible in most of them. So we didn't put those on our list to even go look at because, again, we only had, 6-7 hours in a day. So we could only limit our list to 10 or so. And we went with the 10 best that were portrayed right. And so I said, there's a market for this, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area because I noticed less than 10% at the time were being professionally shot.
Wow.
So I called the builder and I said, this is what we want to do. Can we come shoot this 10,000 square foot house you have? He said, and then from that day, one referral led to another. And here we are 8 years later and 12,000 homes later, still rocking it.
So from your personal experience, trying to find a home, that's kind of what led you to be, to solve the problem of providing really nice photography that people can actually look at. I mean, because you and I were talking before too, how people come from out of state and they might not have the opportunity to shop around a lot because they're not local there, and so that makes a huge difference then in what is even going to start off on the list when you're looking for a home then. So that kind of leads me then, I mean, it's probably kind of obvious, but why do you think photos play such an important role in selling a home, or how do they play such an important role in selling a home?
Well, I think it is obvious, but to some it may not be as obvious. But, the stats that's out there from the National Association of Realtors, that 9 out of 10 home buyers find their home online. So, they're starting with the online search. And of course, the photos of today are yesterday's curb appeal, right? I mean, it was all about curb appeal. I mean, it's still to a certain extent, but now whenever the first time they see the house, it's going to be online. And so if those photos are a true representation of that house, then, that you may be missing out on a potential buyer. And for reasons like you said, they may be out of town, may be limited on time, you name it. So, having the right photos properly represent the property are just absolutely critical, in my opinion. And I think the stats show that as well.
So I've seen some of your work. By the way, it's amazing. You do really good work. And I understand you've shot some pretty high-end homes. Anybody famous in that list?
Yeah, we have quite a few celebrities. I mean, a lot of athletes, Jason Witten, Shin-Soo Choo, Josh Hamilton, Nolan Ryan. I mean, a lot of athletes. So probably our most famous, though, would probably be Selena Gomez. We shot her house over, so that was a really neat experience. And, yeah, so that was a lot of fun.
So how did that go? I mean, everything.
Everything. It was actually a really easy shoot. I mean, her house was gorgeous, but interesting behind it though is once it went viral that this is Selena Gomez's house. Folks like TMZ jumped over and they're sharing it and they're like, oh, they're showing her master bedroom. and they're like, oh, this is this is where she would have Justin Bieber stay over at night. And what's funny though is that actually wasn't her room. Her grandparents stayed in that house, and that's the room they stayed in.
No.
So if they would have known that behind that pillow I hid a CPAP machine, and then behind the other one there's tissue and all sorts of other things that you would not expect a pop star to have in her bedroom. But her bedroom was actually on the other wing of the house. It's real interesting that they automatically assume that since it's hers, that's who's staying there. So
right,
it was
right.
Really, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's yes, it's very reliable report there then on that.
Exactly.
So in that case, obviously somebody's going to have a professional decorator get the home ready and that kind of thing. What about for someone who can't afford that, or it wouldn't even be practical to hire somebody for that? How does somebody get their home ready for a photo shoot?
Well, you don't always have to have a decorator or designer. A lot of times, these sellers can use what they already have in their own home. The key, though, is going to be decluttering. I mean, a lot of times I think we all are guilty of this. We accumulate more stuff than we truly need. And so I think going in there and decluttering would be one of the first steps. And that's actually our home staging tips, which I believe you have a link to.
Yes, yeah. So kind of after the show is done, or you can download it right now if you want to. If you go to the show page on fathomcareers.com, if you just go fathomcareers.com/live, you'll see a link to the show notes there. And there'll be a download that kind of has a lot of this stuff on there. But go ahead, yeah. So you're talking about decluttering being number one. Right,
that's going to be number one. These are all tips really for that photo day, and really it'll translate to the showings as well. But first of all, just decluttering as much as possible, and then depersonalizing as well. And I think that's what a designer would do. That's one of their first steps too, is they try to remove a lot of the family photos that are up. Look in the kitchen. Everyone loves Little Johnny's drawings. We're not saying they don't, but let's clear that fridge off, because we all know how people react. They walk into home, they're going to see pictures of the family and who lives there and what they look like. They're just curious. So remove all that and help that buyer visualize themselves in that house, not another family. And that's the first steps that designers and stagers they take. And then clearing off countertops, but not to the point where it looks so sterile though, right? Because you don't want to make it look half lived in and half vacant. So if there's nice appliances on the counter, like a nice Keurig machine, nice toaster, you can leave some of those things out. But just, less is more. We always say less is more whenever it comes to how you stage your house. And one of the big things too, especially if you're going to go to a model house, you're not going to see any burnt out bulbs. So make sure they're all replaced, before the day of the photos, right. And of course for the showings too. And the important thing is make sure they all match. A lot of times you'll see mismatched, the yellow ones with the daylight bulbs. And I always recommend the daylight bulbs just so it looks brighter and lighter, which, of course, we all know that's what buyers are looking for. So if you have a darker house and you want to brighten it up, go with the daylight bulbs, 100%. It's going to make it look brighter. It's going to look better. And then outside, too, just decluttering out there, too. Get rid of that old grill that is rusty. Your husband, boyfriend, whoever is using it, they want to keep it. Just roll it on out to the curb if it's all rusty and broken up, or just put it in storage. So, there's a lot of things that, can be Photoshopped, depending on your photographer that you choose, but save yourself the money and the editing cost and just go ahead, just do it all from day one. And that way, too, the showings are that much better as well.
Very good. So if I'm in the market, I'm looking for, if I'm in the DFW area, of course, I'm going to use Realty Pro Shots. But if I am looking for a photographer, what are different things I should be looking for when shopping for a professional photographer if I don't already have somebody that I use?
I'd say one of the biggest things you want to look for is consistency. A lot of companies may only put, or a lot of photographers may only put their best homes. They think they only have to show their $1 million properties in their portfolio. But ask them to see some of their most recent listings. Because, a lot of times, unfortunately, with a photographer who may not have been doing this for a long time, they may put more time into shooting a high-end home, more time editing, and they may not spend as much time and attention to detail on a smaller listing. So I would ask for list of some of their most recent listings, just so you can see if their quality is consistent across the board. And then find somebody who, you don't want to find somebody booked out weeks ahead of time, but somebody who's always available last minute as well. Kind of says, well, how often do they actually do this? Is it just a side hustle? Is it a side gig? So you want to make sure that this is actually something that they do for a living. And then the last thing I'd say, look for somebody who specializes in real estate photography. You have a lot of photographers who are amazingly talented at, wedding photography, portrait photography, but that doesn't always mean they're going to be great at real estate photography. I know I certainly could not go in and take photos of a wedding, not at the point where you'd be willing to pay for it. It's just like, I just because the guy that can fix my toilet in my house, I'm not going to take my car and hope that he can fix my transition too. You want to stick with the specialist. So definitely find somebody who is a real estate photographer.
Right. It's funny because just yesterday I saw somebody saying, man, this guy can make anything look good, but it was all kind of these sort of inspirational shots, which are great for, like you said, for weddings, or if you're, engagement photos, or, baby shoot or whatever, but definitely wouldn't translate over to actually shooting a home. So suppose I get a good camera, and we're going to talk about that in a sec. What if I wanted to do it myself? But if I did try to do it myself, what are things that I couldn't do that perhaps a professional photography company could do for me? If I just said, I'm not going to mess with this myself.
There's quite a few things. For instance, drone photography. That's a big one that's real popular these days. Again, making sure that the person they have their Part 107 license, so they can actually fly commercially. Twilights. They're extremely tricky to shoot, and even trickier to edit. A lot of times that's why, they cost, just as much as a regular shoot. And then, advanced editing things like virtual twilights, where you take a daytime shot and convert it into virtual twilight. A lot of photographers out there are offering that these days as well. And that just comes with a lot of time and training in editing photos. Virtual staging is another one. That's another time consuming
what is that? Virtual staging?
It's where you have an empty property, it's a vacant property, and rather than spending thousands of dollars on having a company come in and actually stage it with real furniture, we can, and other photography companies, some can, they go in there and they virtually place furniture. And so it'll look like it's staged. And if you're going to use that service, you want to find a photographer who does it realistically, because unfortunately you'll see some out there where it just looks so fake. You're not gonna pull anybody. It looks terrible. Because you got to get your shadows right. And if you have one angle from one corner showing a couch and love seat, well, the angle from the other corner better have that same love seat and couch, just different orientation. So again, it comes back down to attention to detail. In other virtual services, or like a semi-aerial where we use a pole, a lot of other photographers use that as well, just kind of get a really unique perspective. And so there's quite a few of the extra type add-ons that professional photography companies provide that are really difficult for the amateur, or somebody who doesn't do it a lot, for them to do on their own. Right.
It's probably not something that you're going to just pull out of your car and have ready available. So camera obviously makes a huge difference. I mean, it's amazing to me what you can do with a cell phone camera to begin with. But if I were to go out and say, hey, I'm going to get into this myself, what kind of camera should I be looking for something like that? And what kind of cost would that be?
Yeah, there's plenty of agents out there that take photos on their own, and that definitely gets the job done. So I'd suggest, if you want to take it on yourself because you just really enjoy photography, really any decent DSLR, which you'll know if it's DSLR because you can interchange the lenses. You could get those on Amazon, around $1,000. So I mean, along with that, you want a good wide angle lens, around 12 to 14 millimeters. That way you can capture the whole room. And a decent setup, is going to run you about $1,200 to $1,500. And so you could definitely go out and buy equipment that'll, get the job done without, breaking the bank. I mean, professionals usually, our gear is going to range between, $6,000 to $10,000 for the camera and the lens. But you definitely don't have to break the bank if you're not shooting 9, 10 houses a day like somebody like we are.
Right. So if I was just to go in with my cell phone, for instance, and let's say that's all I had, that's all the time I have, or whatever, and I don't have the equipment, what would be some quick pro tips for me to shoot a decent, photo shoot of a house with my phone?
Yeah, absolutely. Whether you're with your phone or your own camera, I'd say there's two biggest things you want to look for, or you want to pay mind to when it comes to real estate photography. It's going to be one, corners are your friend. And I mean like back up into that corner. That way you capture as much of the room, because, without having a wide angle lens, you're really going to have to back up. to capture the entire space. So use corners to your advantage every single time, and that'll help make the room appear larger. Or if it is a larger room, it'll help show off how large that room is. The second point, which is critical to real estate photography, are straight verticals. And what I mean by that is try not to aim the camera up or down. Unfortunately, a lot of photographers, they'll get in their, or agents that do it on their own, they'll get in the habit of wanting to get that really cool artsy shot, and so they'll aim the camera down or they'll aim it up. The problem is you end up with what we call converging lines. So like half the room is going to look like this, or depending, it's going to look like this. So it look like the room's caving in on you, or if you're outside and you shoot up towards the house because you're trying to be artsy, well, now it's going to look like the house is like caving in on you. But what's interesting though is, you can actually place a picture that has straight verticals versus one that are barely off, and 99 times out of 100, someone's going to say the one with straight verticals is better. But if you ask them why, they won't really be able to say, oh, right. Verticals are straight. They just know something about it looks right. So corners and verticals, biggest tips for doing it yourself.
Great. Well, I appreciate that, and I'm sure our viewers do as well. Now, on the other hand, the time that it takes to, you think about, I gotta buy decent equipment if I want to get some decent photos, and then I have to take the time to get those onto a computer, edit them, and get them exported in the right format and uploaded to the MLS. So let's just assume I don't want to do that because there is a lot of time commitment in that. How could using a professional photographer that you trust, that you know, how would that help you as an agent with your clients?
Well, the biggest thing, and that I always tell agents, whether they use us or they use somebody else, agents that I know in other states, friends in the industry, tell them, make it part of your listing presentation. You remember back in 10 years ago when the big deal was, oh, I put your house on, these 6 different websites. Well, now with syndication, it happens automatically. So use the fact that you're hiring a professional real estate photographer to come in and shoot the home. Use it as part of the listing presentation. Say, hey, here's who I'm sending out. Here's some of their work. And then that seller, I know I would. I'd be like, oh wow, they're going to spend some money on my house and then actually reach out to professionals. I know if I had a realtor who said, yep, I'm going to have my nephew come in and take some pictures. He took a class in high school. I might be like, well, are they cheaping out or do they not know somebody? But again, let the agent do what they're good at, which is selling the property and managing those relationships. Let a professional handle all the other aspects. What we do a lot of times is we'll actually be the one that sets up the shoot with the sellers themselves. So we'll have clients say, hey, I got the best real estate photographer in town. He's going to reach out to you to get on your schedule, and we're going to get this thing sold. And they're like, oh, wow, like he's got all these people calling me to take care of him. It's like you as an agent are becoming that concierge.
Right.
It frees that agent up to do, a million other things that they're going to have to do to help sell the property. So use it in your listing presentation. Say, hey, here's who I'm bringing out. And I think I know as a seller, I would be super impressed by that. And so I think the agent should definitely do that.
It seems like, having sold a couple of homes, it would take a lot of the anxiety away, too, from the seller. Wondering, oh, man, is my house going to look good in the end? But if you got somebody that, that's going to take the pictures professionally, I don't even have to worry about that. I'm not shopping around myself to try to find something. But not only that, they're going to come and touch up the photos to make them look good. To me, that would provide me a lot of ease of mind and trust in my agent then to be able to make sure that my house really looks as good as it can look before it goes to market. Have you ever seen, on that though, when it comes to touching up photos, have you ever seen people that oversell or over-edit, or they do things like, what's the boundary with that? You can make, a simple house look like the Taj Mahal, but then the buyer gets there and it's like, this isn't the house that I saw online. So what's the line on that and the principles maybe for making sure that somebody isn't overdoing it with the photography?
Oh yeah, well that's definitely a fine line between wanting to make it look good and then misrepresenting the property, which an agent could obviously lose their license for. We see it all the time in the industry where an agent will ask, hey, can you remove the power line or the water tap behind the house? And the photographer will do it because it's not on the photographer if they get in trouble for it. We don't personally do that because we don't want the agent to get in trouble for misrepresenting the property. But if it's not something that's going to misrepresent, like virtual staging, it's not misrepresenting the property because it's not something that would normally convey with a house. And so it's not attached to the house. But you definitely see some interesting things out there. Like the virtual twilights, for example. People will put the sunset in the wrong spot. And then the seller or the buyers now, they're like, oh, that's a beautiful sunset from their back porch. Well, that's the sunset's on the side of the house, not in the back. And so, you have to, again, pay attention to detail on where that's going to set or rise. And you can get crazy with, also like oversaturating colors. You see whenever you ask your photographer to green the grass, sometimes you'll see examples where it looks like AstroTurf. And, of course, these are all things that can be done to a certain extent. The key is just realistically. You want to do it enough to, just lightly touching enough to where it'll still give you a feel for the house, but it's not turning it into a clown,
Right.
And so, one of the analogies I like to use, especially when we go into a home that's just completely wrecked and the agent wants to just Photoshop everything. So, you can put lipstick on a pig, but at the end of the day, it's still a pig.
Right.
You don't want to upset a potential buyer by having them walk into something and saying, this is not what I saw online. So there's definitely a fine line. And again, we don't want to see our agents get in trouble and lose their license for misrepresenting it. And so we try to keep within the parameters of what's allowed, what's ethical, and just honestly what looks good.
Now, I've seen some examples where you'll take a room, let's say it's a bathroom that's totally gutted. Maybe the rest of the house looks great, but the bathroom's gutted, and you make it look like it's finished. Now, obviously, you're not going to want to actually represent the house that way as if it's finished, but maybe tell me about the benefit of doing that and how that works with making sure that people understand that it's fake. What's the point behind it, and how does that all work?
Oh, well, I mean, I think we all know about, those buyers who don't have the vision per se. They can't see past a paint color. They can't see past, it being under renovation. So by going in there and actually finishing out a room, which we've done this for Fathom Agent not too long ago, where the house was in the middle of a demo and the contractor's up and left. And so, I mean, there were no floors. It was down to the studs for the most part. And so we were able to go in there and add floors, make everything look as if it were finished. But the key, though, is the agent should use those and say, print them out, put them at the house, share them and say, these have been digitally altered, but this is what it could look like once it's done. So as long as the agent is up front.
You're kind of like Joanna Gaines then, where she takes people and says, here's what we can make this house look like by the time we're done spending, this money on it.
Exactly. And we've had so many success stories where, you walk into a home, like for example, one story, you walk in this grand living room, with 30-foot ceilings. It was gorgeous, but everything was bright red. I mean, bright red. Furniture was all red. It was terrible. And so it's really hard to see past that. So what we did is we photoshopped everything a very nice neutral color, and the agent actually printed that off and put it on a little easel in the kitchen, said, here's what it'll look like after it's painted. And it just looked 1,000 times better. So it can be used as a tool to help those buyers that don't quite have the vision that some others will have. Again, as long as they properly represent it as such.
Very good. Well, I appreciate that. Now, do you have any stories or examples of people who maybe they weren't using a professional photographer for either a particular listing or just in general, and then they started it and it sort of changed their business or helped them to sell things faster? Anything like that?
Yeah, there's been quite a few. I mean, it's happened quite a bit, but one that really comes to mind, this was last year. There's a property that sat on the market for about 6 months without really very many showings, didn't get a whole lot of interest. And whenever you look at the photos, you could just tell that's one of the main reasons why. And so the new agent, they picked up the listing, and it was a luxury listing. And they had the seller convinced, like, no, hey, we can do this right. And so they took the listing. We went out, we shot it. And I believe it was 3.5 weeks. It was under contract. And so it was one of those deals where the photos before, they just did not represent the property. You look at it and you think, this is not $1 million house. But you get the right photographer in there that can really show it in its true light, and it'll move a lot faster than what you could have imagined. Now, an interesting story on the other side of that, though, because with all the good, the bad, there's the ugly. a while back we shot a listing for a fellow Fathom agent, and it was interesting. It was a nice home. I believe it was built in the 1940s or 50s. Um, we shot it and it looked great. And an agent left feedback that said they could tell professional photos were taken because it didn't pick up on some of the smaller blemishes, like crack in the floor. I forgot what else he pointed out. But of course, we're not going to zoom in on these things. We're going to shoot it. We're going to represent it correctly, but we're not going to focus. And so it's funny because that particular agent was not a fan of professional photography and thought it didn't show the house, correctly. Whereas his photos that he took on his own with his cell phone, everything was so black, you couldn't see anything. I mean, literally, you could not see anything. And so I feel bad for the seller in that case because they're being done a disservice. But again, it comes down to just showing it, and representing it the right way. But it can have a huge difference.
Well, with that, I would assume that people really love you because you make them look good. I mean, to me, I can't imagine really not enjoying working with a photographer that knows what they're doing. But do you have any advice or insight for just how to work with your photographer to make their life easy, to make your life easy? Any advice? I've done a lot of design, whether it's graphic design or web design, and there are some times where it's like the person, if they give you too much feedback, it's sort of crippling. If they don't give you enough feedback, you feel sort of stifled in what you're trying to do. Any advice on how to work with a photographer to make everything go smoothly and look good?
Yeah, two things. One is trust, and one is verify. So trust that your real estate photographer knows what they're doing and knows the best angles to get. Because again, in person, you may think, oh, this is going to be the best angle, but when it comes to photography, they may have a better idea. So trust that they're going to get the best shot that's going to really help sell the house, because that's their goal, is to help you sell it. They don't want to see it sell on the market, just as much as you. So trust that they know what they're doing, and then verify. By verify, I mean verify with your sellers. I'm part of a real estate photography group that's nationwide, and this is one of our biggest pet peeves because it happens all the time, and it's not the fault of the agent. But the agent will go in there the day they get the signed listing agreement, and they'll say, okay, photo day, here's a staging tips that we got from our photographer. Or here's what you got to do. Next Wednesday we're doing photos. And they're like, okay, great. We'll be ready. And then we show up at the same time as the agent that Wednesday, and it's far from ready. And unfortunately, we only have so much time allotted for that shoot. Other photographers only have so much time allotted for their shoot. So a lot of times you can't get it ready in time to shoot it. So there's two options: either reschedule and come back out, which is going to cost you more money, which is not fun, or shoot it how it is, and you're not going to get the most bang for your buck. So whenever I say verify, you go out there, hours before, or best is go out there the day before the shoot, the day of the shoot. Make sure that they did everything they were supposed to, because again, you also have to keep in mind that for the seller, this is a major emotional event. Whether they're going through a divorce and so they're selling the house, or whether the family is growing, they had more kids, so they're upgrading, or they're empty nesters, everyone graduated, so they're moving out, so they're downsizing. This is a major event. And like I said earlier, how we collect more stuff than we actually need. In the mind, we think, oh, all I need is a weekend to get the house ready. My homework is only one page. Well, when they start getting down to it, a lot of times for these sellers, it can be very overwhelming. I mean, especially if it's an emotional situation. So go out there the day before, make sure they got it done, check, or even have them take some, if it's a listing far away, just have them take some pictures just so you can verify. Again, that way you get the most bang for your buck, and the photographer will get in there, in and out, and they'll be your best friend. They'll be glad to take on your listings, last minute, because they know you're going to get there and the house is going to be ready and it's going to be ready to shoot. So again, trust your photographer, and then 2, verify your sellers did what they were supposed to do.
So when I go through that listing presentation and I say, hey, I've got a professional photographer, and I go through the timeline of how everything should work, I'm going to say, the day before the shoot, I'm going to come to your house, and we're just going to work together to make sure everything looks the way it should be, so our photographer can get the best shots. I'm telling them ahead of time what to expect, so they know, hey, this is coming. And then if it just happens to still look really bad when you show up, then you can help them take care of that, and maybe check again with them the next day or a few hours before the shoot, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think going out there the day before, because if you get out there and you realize they're far from ready and you need to reschedule, Generally, most photographers out there have a cancellation policy or a reschedule policy. Now, I know ours is as long as you give us 24 hours notice, then there's no cancellation or reschedule fee. Because you have to keep in mind that if you're a professional real estate photography company, you're going to have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shoots a day, and that's a slot that we couldn't necessarily fill in the next day. So it's very important to again be a good steward of that photographer's time. And again, me as a photographer, I want to be able to go in there and spend the most time getting the best shots. And if we're having to spend 20 minutes cleaning it or getting it ready, well, then we're kind of rushed in getting the shots we need. So again, if you're going to pay for it, you might as well make sure it's going to be great. But for me, another big point is for that agent, it gives them another touch point with that seller, though. It gives them another chance to be, with them personally in their space, going over what needs to be done, final walkthrough. And it's just another personal touch that will be remembered whenever they go to refer their friends. Like, oh yeah, go with this realtor because they were with me every step of the way, between scheduling the inspector, the photographer. We had to get this fixed, and so they were able to find the guy that fixes it, and they were there to make sure it was done right. So again, it just comes down to building that relationship between the seller and the agent, and this is just one more touch point for them to do so. And then 2, they're going to be the photographer's best friend because when you walk in, it's perfect, ready to go. It's just an easy day.
So one thing I wanted to ask you about too was video. I mean, drones are kind of sort of on the rise as far as being used in multiple different ways, but certainly the quality of footage that you can get for for a pretty low cost of buying a drone is amazing. So do you recommend, if I've got a $200,000 home in just your kind of average suburban neighborhood, do you recommend getting that kind of footage? And then beyond that, what about other kinds of video? Is it worth doing a video, panning shots of a home? Or does that make a difference? And what would you say are kind of principles for that?
Honestly, and this is where, the rest of the real estate photography community, they'd probably start throwing darts at me for saying this. But I don't think it's as necessary as a lot of people make it out to be. First of all, the attention span of everyone nowadays is so short. So even if you do a video, it's got to be less than 60 seconds, otherwise you're going to lose them. But I think if you have quality photos that really show the layout of the home, they tell the story correctly, then you can save the money instead of buying the video. Because depending on the market you're in, video can be anywhere between $200 up to $1,200, depending on how big of a deal you want to make it. But I think on your average homes, the ones that are selling within 30 to 60 days, I don't think it's cost effective to do video. It's something that we're going to start offering more of anyways for those that still do want it. I think on your harder listings, like your $1 million and up listings, I think video could definitely be helpful in those cases because you can expect those to sit a little bit longer. And you're probably going to have more of an out-of-town buyers for those. So telling more of the story through video is not a bad idea. And it's probably worth it more because, again, you're going to be making more, so invest a little bit more to get it sold. But honestly, one of the things I think is a great idea is for the agent to do a Facebook Live video and do their own little home tour because, again, it comes down to potential sellers that are out there and potential buyers. Now they're having another touch point, even if it's over social media, it's a touch point with that agent. And I think that's plenty to show them a walkthrough and the layout of a home. And it gives the realtor the chance to actually talk about the property. So I think for your $1 million and up properties, I think it's definitely not a bad idea. It's not going to hurt. But I think for your run-of-the-mill listings that are going to sell rather quickly anyways, I think spending an additional, I know ours would start around $400 and then go up from there. I think spending that on, the ones that are going to sell quick, I don't think it's worth the investment, to be honest.
So for the $1 million and up ones, you would say definitely, or it's a really good idea. I mean, one thing that I was thinking about too is that with a smaller home, you take a few shots. You as the person looking through the however many 30 photos on the MLS, I can say, oh, that room is adjacent to this room and kind of do this sort of step-by-step walkthrough. Whereas with a very large piece of property, you might not see how the rooms connect together. I guess that's just one example I was thinking about. But would you say definitely for the million and up, or still kind of, if it seems right?
I would say 90% of the time. If it were $1 million and up listing, that's probably going to sit a little bit longer. I would. I would have video done on that. And again, another reason for that though too is not necessarily because that video is going to help sell it, which probably will, but it's another way to get that listing. again, like I said earlier about, make the photographer, videographer part of the listing presentation. Say, hey, we're going to have a photographer and a videographer come out. They're going to do this. They're going to provide this. Show some examples of work that's been done, and you're really going to wow that seller, because nowadays that's what these sellers are expecting. They're seeing some videos. They're seeing some pretty amazing things. They're seeing drone photos, so they're going to expect the same thing from you. And if you can provide that, then you're going to be playing on a level playing field.
Well, Charles, I really appreciate you giving us a lot of insight, and just both from if I was to do it myself, as well as how to work with a photographer. Any last comments you'd want to make? Otherwise, we'll wrap things up.
No, I'd say if photographers or if agents do want to take photos themselves, it's a great go for it. Again, remember corners, verticals, and then another thing I didn't mention earlier is don't put your phone or your camera up and down for the vertical shots, because MLS will definitely really mess those up. So just keep it horizontal. But just again, take the shots that you think are going to sell the property. There's no shame in taking the photos yourself. Definitely they'll save yourself a lot of time by hiring a photographer. But some markets just don't have one. So just keep that in mind too. But anytime we're here to help real estate photographers, they're out there to help. And for those outside of the DFW market, if you need help finding a real estate photographer that you think would be worthwhile in your area, just give me a shot. I'd be glad to help you out. Find somebody that I think could represent your property the right way. And if you shoot it yourself and you need somebody to touch something up or edit something, by all means, send it our way. We'll see what we can do, and we'll get you helped out.
Awesome. Charles, thank you again so much. And again, thank you for your service. If you want to check out Charles's business, go to realtyproshots.com, and you can see it's a lot of examples. They have a huge portfolio of properties that they've shot. Also, they kind of show examples of the differences between the same shot, maybe shot on your cell phone, or the same image shot on your cell phone versus shot professionally, and what that can look like. So a lot of cool stuff that way. Again, that's realtyproshots.com. Thanks for joining us. And as always, we want to remind you that Fathom Realty offers 100% commission and the tools designed for your success. So you can check that out as an agent by going to fathomcareers.com. And we offer KV Core. We offer a transaction management system. There's agent equity, truly affordable healthcare, great support, all kinds of stuff for you as an agent. So make sure that you check that out at fathomcareers.com. We'll be back here next Wednesday live at 1:30 with Brandon Howard, and we're doing another giveaway. Brandon is an expert at generating leads, and so he's going to be offering a lead giveaway for those who, again, share the post or share the Facebook Live or the YouTube Live, as well as comment on it during the episode. So we'll give you more details about that soon, but wanted to make sure that you know about Brandon next week. So we're looking forward to having him on the show. Again, thanks for joining us, and have a good week.